Okay, that's enough, maybe. Charles is involved in green technology now. I want to ask a question, though, to Charles, if I ever get the chance. Did any of the AAM money find its way into NatTech, NewTech, whatever it's called? Because I tell you why, their share price was 60 cents a share. 2010, it's gone up to $1. Did it? Do we know? We should know. ASIC should be over there asking him. Tell you what, if anyone will want to pay my fare, I'll go and ask him directly. This is not a person on the run. This is not a person who's like Flada. You know, they said, oh, Flada's gone. You know? He hasn't gone. He actually, in an interview, said he's been to the White House a couple of times. When I saw it, I thought, oh, yeah, sure, Charles, Chuck. No, it's true. He's a friend, business associate of the brother of the Vice President and the son of the Vice President. The son, Hunter Biden, in his latest CV, when you look it up, go home and look up Hunter Biden. Pretty impressive. He's done law and all that sort of stuff. Funny. Doesn't mention Paradigm. Has he got a bad memory? It was only 2 years ago. Or is it because Paradigm could be difficult for his dad? I don't know. I'm asking the questions. I don't know the answers. But we've got a right as Australians to ask them. And we have a right to expect that our parliamentarians attend a meeting here today. Secondly, the regulatory authorities answer those questions. Gee, I'd like to have another meeting with Metcalfe. Wouldn't I? And wouldn't we all? I am going to contact Bloomberg and Fox News and say, hey, do you guys know there's a possibility that Biden's company, Paradigm, was involved in one of the biggest financial crimes in Australia? If you'd like to talk to us, we'd like to tell you. And they say, well, who are you? Okay, I'm just a person in Wollongong, but I happen to have confidential evidence which was given before our financial regulator that wasn't given to the Parliament. Do you reckon they might be interested? I think they might. Have we got another one? No, thanks. Right, now who would have an interest in suppressing this? Who do you reckon might have a small interest? Okay. The man I'm going to vote for in the Senate, Julian Assange. Got it. Well, I'm not going to vote for the Labor Party. WikiLeaks, thank goodness, revealed the things that are said in the US Embassy in Australia. And who do you think were the two most assiduous informants of the US government? Well, first one is Paul Howes. Paul's been in and out of the embassy, telling him all sorts of things. And Bill Shorten has been there as well. Next one, John. Aware the US Consul General in Melbourne is largely concerned with US business interests in the country, Shorten was at pains to show that he was no mere union lackey. Shorten was highly critical, noted the US diplomat, of current union leadership. He goes on to outline his business-friendly credentials, including his MBA from Melbourne University, talking about how close he was to the late packaging mogul Richard Pratt, a crook, convicted crook. And throwing his union comrades under a tram by pledging that in comparison to other union leaders, he's willing to listen to business concerns. That's Bill. Next one. Yeah, it's okay.
That's a new slide, yeah.
That is? Okay. All right. I just want to ask this question, or a couple of questions, and they're for you to decide. When I read this stuff at first, I thought this is just unbelievable. And if I tell anyone, they'll say it's just me, as an extremist, trying to manipulate you. I'm going to try and make sure every one of you get a copy of these. Right? Read it yourself. Please, read it yourself. You have a right to read this. Legally you don't. Morally, democratically you do. Not only that, the custodian of this Metcalfe had an obligation to give this information to the Joint Parliamentary Committee. First question, how come none of this gets to the Joint Parliamentary Committee? This evidence had been taken by the middle of 2010. Joint Parliamentary Committee continues on to 2011. I was there when Metcalfe gave his evidence. He said, well, we're still pursuing. Really? There's enough evidence here to tell the Parliament something. And then he says, we have contracted out the pursuance of this issue to PBB. And as Professor Jones today has told us, one of the partners of PBB was Metcalfe's predecessor. What a convenient arrangement for them. PBB gave evidence before the Supreme Court, before Justice Palmer, in its application in 2010 to wind up Trio on public interest grounds. What they told Palmer was that it was a fraud, a crime, but they didn't tell Justice Palmer the detail of it. When APRA gave what are called the enforceable undertakings, I've got them with me, we haven't got time to read them out. You will have time over the next couple of months to read it all yourself. I'm just asking you, read it all yourself and draw your own conclusions. But when the enforceable undertakings were issued against the directors of Trio, APRA listed the names of the superannuation registered funds, because that's their responsibility. But APRA went no further than the shores of Australia. Hey, this is a transnational crime. This crime occurred in New York. Apparently. We have the evidence of Cole Warren, who, by the way, wasn't called by the Joint Parliamentary Committee and still to this day has not been questioned by ASIC. Gee, Charles Provini is named by Sean Richard as the leading advisor for AAM. Colin has actually spoken to him and he's given Colin documents to reassure Colin that those investments were secure in New York, which indicates he knew about them, he knew where the money was, he knew what was happening. Colin is in Australia, he's available. ASIC's got to knock on his door and say, Colin, please come in and give some evidence. He will, I understand that. And following on from that, Charles Provini's the next one to be. Charles is everywhere. He's in the White House, he's in New York, he's in the Yacht Club, he's one of the most esteemed members of the New York Stock Exchange, and he's in China. Not too hard to track down. Why haven't they done it? I mean, when I read this stuff, I have to stand up and walk somewhere. Because you just say to yourself, it shouts at you from the page. Why haven't they done it? Now, I've got some ideas. I don't want to go on about them today. You may have some ideas. We may be totally wrong. But we've got a right to know. And they've got an obligation to tell us. So, if ASIC wants to pay me a call, that's okay. And if they want to prosecute, I'm not a hero, but I'm not being ridiculous about this. But if I'm the only one to go to jail, because this is a breach of the Act, the only one to go to jail who proclaims his innocence, by the way, Sean Richard confessed. Let this crumbling, corrupt federal government do that, if they want to, really. Too old, been around too long to worry, seriously. This is a government which spent $380,000 defending Thompson, a thief. Haven't given you $1 to go after Provini. Haven't even suggested, oh, by the way, you want to take a civil action in the United States under the Transnational Organised Crime Convention, which you can do. We'll help you. No. Outside the flags. outside the jurisdiction, outside their concern. They expected that you were all going to go away and basically disappear off the face of the political map. And wouldn't that have been good for Bill Shorten? Wouldn't that have been good for Charles Provini? Wouldn't that have been good for the Bidens and everyone else? They had their man, Sean Richard. They pointed the finger at the financial advisors, despite the fact the only person who bothered to go to New York wasn't APRA. And by the way, we know that APRA had 5 meetings in 4 years with Trio, with the custodians, the guardians of your money. Had 5 meetings with them during this period when all this was being set up, when Charles was investing your money in New York and all the rest of the stuff. Didn't take one trip to Wall Street. Colin did, spoke to Provini, Provini reassured him, lied to him. So the question is, why don't they tell us the truth, right? I'd say because the truth is too damaging. Now, where do we go from here? You now have more information than you've ever had before. You have information by law you're not supposed to have. It's in my possession. If anyone wants to question me about that, that's fine by me. I might even get Chris McCardle, who's a mate of mine, who's currently Thompson's lawyer. He's doing a good job in the media to defend that. So, you know, really, I don't really think there's any way you can say there's a compromise on this anymore. If they were trying a little bit, you'd say, okay, give them a go. They'll come up with something. But PBB is going to investigate this, please. The former director, the former chairman of ASIC is a senior partner of PBB. And now all of a sudden, I seem to get the picture as to why it is that when you ask PBB for information, sorry, we're going to charge you $1,000. When you ask PBB, how are you going with the investigation? Oh, that's confidential. It's a really neat crime, isn't it, really? When you think about it, gee, it really worked well. One small problem. The people who've been stolen from aren't going to lie down. I reckon there are grounds for a Royal Commission into the whole thing.
Yeah.